This is not the church of Joseph Smith. I bless you with a desire to repent, to repent, to repent.
Alright, Travis Wayne Goodsell. I've hooked up the other air conditioner that I had bought for the failure of the main one. And testing it out. I noticed that with the TV there seems to be a concentration of heat on the monitor here because the temperature reading. Can you see that without a glare? I can't even get it. Anyway, it's always higher than the rest of the apartment as I've got these set up in every room. But yeah, you remember Elder Hamula got excommunicated? Been doing some research, trying to figure stuff out, connect pieces together, reading over Zechariah chapter 13 and 14. A weird hum. So I was trying to find the quotes that have been given out back in that day, where the prophets were confessing to being weak individuals, that they didn't know the doctrine, they had to go to BYU professors, and those days were shocking enough. Yeah, Hamula was excommunicated, as it was reported on 9 August 2017 by CNN. So whether that was the day before, 8th of August, or whether they were doing it as they heard immediately and did the reporting on the 9th. I haven't bothered to extensively go into that. I just wanted to know how soon before Monson's death he was excommunicated. So 4 months. 4 months. September, October, November, December, well, 5 months. But, yeah, very interesting. Because by August, it was clear Monson was on his deathbed. In May of 2017, he had been confined to his home, if not hospitalized, if I remember right, for a short period of time, and then it just went downhill to the end of that year. And yet his signature still appeared on lots of changes in the church. Interesting how that happened. But I'm looking at the comeuntoChrist.org, and they failed to put the full symbol as their little thumbnail. They sort of took out the cornerstone. Upon the cornerstone of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I am built. I still can't believe he pulled that off. Unbelievable. It's just, oh my God. And Mormons fell for it. My God, you are my people, and you fell for it. Christ is the cornerstone, not the church. The church must be built on God, not God built on the church. It's a simple symbol, and he bleeped it up. But Zechariah 13 and 14, I think 13 was the one that talks about false prophets being ashamed in the last days. Oops. And confessing that they aren't prophets, they're just men. And that's why I was looking for the quotes from previous scriptures or conferences. So I do have them. I had to provide them for Russell because of his withered arm. The DVD collections he gets from the church is difficult to pull out with his one arm, the disc, and put it into the device. So I digitized it all for him as he had bought the recommended storage device. And so I provide him with conferences digitized. And yeah, so I've got the collection as a backup in case something goes wrong with his drive. So it's just a matter of finding which talk. I know Uchtdorf gave one of them. But yeah, unbelievable. And so yeah, I found in the search for it, I found Denver Snuffer's interview with KTUV, whatever that is. And he was talking about Oaks making a sudden, uninvited trip to Boise for a stake conference, where he ripped them a new one for being false prophets. But Denver said it didn't seem like it had to do with him directly. It was most likely whatever was going on in Boise at that time. And I sort of wonder, because Keith Fenstermacher, who I grew up with in Southern California, he was on the east side of the freeway, in that Corona section, Corona High. But because my family moved into the new subdivision on the west side of the freeway, still in Corona, that's where we went to church instead of Norco's church, where I went to high school, was in Norco. But by the time I went to Rick's, they changed the boundaries in my parents, so I gave my mission farewell and homecoming there at the Norco Chapel. So yeah, he went to Boise, Idaho for his schooling, or either, I think it was just his schooling. So whether he stayed there in Boise to work, I can't remember. It's been too long, and I'm missing the significant details to the story. But very interesting. Yeah, 16 million now are unemployed in the United States. And so I'm sure that Utah local news is going to try to figure out some way to make it be about them. It's all about us. I still have, it's only 9:30, so we still have 4 more hours, 3.5 hours, until they change the stats for how many more dead people and cases of coronavirus there are on the Utah's website. I don't know why they can't update it hourly. That doesn't make sense to me. But yeah, I was kind of wondering, because Pharaoh's firstborn, when Moses confronted and coronavirus swept through Egypt, Pharaoh's firstborn dies, which means the succession ended, and Pharaoh was forced to let Moses be Pharaoh, but take his kingdom into elsewhere. It's not a historically accurate account, as I've been trying to explain to you. And so, no, he did not establish the kingdom with Joshua conquering Canaan, which is also apocalyptic literature as well. It's just the book of Jesus doing battle for the promised land. Because the timing, and I did the video. But I was also checking up on the Mount being split, Jews going through, seeing Jesus, Palms. This is where I was wounded in the house of my friends, which comes from Zechariah. That's how I found Zechariah's scriptures. Yeah, it's only covered in Doctrine and Covenants 45. And so it leads me to wonder if Joseph was again using the coding, and in 1979 edition of the Bible, or I guess it would be 81 session of the Doctrine and Covenants, when they tried to restore the original people and places, that, like I've pointed out, they missed Babylon in Doctrine and Covenants section 1 verse 16. And so I was thinking maybe they forgot section 45, assuming that Jerusalem was Jerusalem and Judah was Judah. I wonder, because they didn't change those. Those were the original places. And so, yeah, I think the church, in their ignorance, missed more than what they thought they had gotten everything with. As I was trying to read over it in the current understanding of America being Babylon, and corresponding also to Utah with the church, because he's talking about future Mormons who violate their temple covenants, their ordinances of the temple, violate their marriage ordinances. He's talking about apostasy of the church right there in 14 and 15. And so when he gets to 16, he then explains why. It's because Mormons are going their own way. They're creating idols for their gods. God built upon the foundation of the church, and that's how idols are developed. You create your God based upon the foundation of your weird thinking. It's your own will that creates God, and that's idol work. That's idolatry, where you create God in your image. And that's what the church did with their symbol. They created their God, who they called Jesus. Oh, it's Jesus. No, it's according to the church as their hinge pointing in a new direction. And so I was reading over section 45 and wondering, and I've been wondering that for a while now, will these eastern mountains have a big earthquake that parts them? And so we all have to travel through to get out of this valley, as the plague that Zechariah is talking about is nearly wiping us out. And in fact, 2/3 are wiped out, which is what was supposed to be happening in the latter days as well. But yeah, I'm still wondering, because Zechariah talks about in 14 the Feast of Tabernacles, which is in the fall, typically around when the October General Conference is. It falls around the time period of the Feast of Tabernacles for the Jews, and it varies year to year because the Jewish calendar is based on a 30-day month and 360 days rather than 365 days, with an additional month every so often. And because all the kings of the world, according to Zechariah, have to come and see King David, the restorer of the kingdom, the Christ, and they have to worship him on a yearly basis, or next year's harvest is going to be a famine, no rain. So that's interesting. Does he have that what is it called? Harp. Does he have harp? Is he using it on kingdoms that refuse to give him obeisance? That would mean that Russia's harp has been confiscated and America's harp has been confiscated, and whoever else has possession of it. So, yeah, weird. But it seems to me that because this is Passover, this is it, that by the fall, the kingdom will be established to the point where that becomes the yearly anniversary for the gathering. It's very interesting. And those who survive of the nations, who survive this plague right now that we're having, need to come and worship him, as Zechariah calls it. So, yeah, I'm just doing research at the moment, checking things out. But yeah, Hamula was excommunicated right at the time where the prophets would be looking for somebody to replace in the apostles, as Nelson would be elevated up, leaving that space. Then that October, he was October 1st, as the Nevada thing was the 31st. I try to remember to disassociate the two events. And so August, September, October, so 2 months later, Hales bites it, and then they then needed 2 more people to fill the apostleship after Monson died for April conference. But it still was too early for the October conference of 2017, so I'm not quite sure what was going on. So there's still 2 more months for that too. Yeah, because he was excommunicated. They had an official court with the apostles, but not with his stake president. Stake presidents are supposed to officiate. You only appeal to the 12. So they didn't follow that procedure. So I'm kind of wondering what was actually going on. That the apostles didn't want his stake president to know. In order to violate church policy and procedure on excommunications. But he complied with the non-disclosure agreement. He's remained silent this whole time and hid from society, as he would be easily recognizable if he left his home. His brother had to come out and say it wasn't for sin. Okay? and so then it was apostasy. But he says, nope, Wasn't for apostasy either. Okay, then there's nothing left to be excommunicated for by the apostles rather than a stake president. So, yeah, something's not right with that, as I reported back then. But, yeah, the timing was very curious. I wonder if he was being asked to do some special project. He was no longer in the history department, from what I remember, but he had been the historian of the church for a period of time. And so, yeah, I wonder if they were trying to get him to do some new project, and he said, no, I can't handle this, I'm out. So, yeah, very interesting. Alright. Hope you're staying safe. Hope you're staying at home, inside. This is Passover, guys. What do you think Moses told the Israelites to do? Stay home. Stay in your home. Don't go to work. Stay home. So, apparently not too many people are listening here in Utah. I think they can be immune from what is coming, because I've been doing the stats, checking the percentages, and Utah just doesn't have the equipment to test, or they're refusing to test until people come to them to say, do I have it? So yeah, there's already reports of mass deaths who haven't been tested. So be on the alert. I was debating as to whether I should just go deposit my check for this week and just come straight home. I'm not going to go grocery shopping, that's for certain. But I've decided just to hold the check until next week. Who knows? I don't know. But yeah, weird. See, no, it's rising, and that's scaring me that it's rising, but I've got the air units blowing on me, as you can hear them in the background, more dominantly than the crappy air unit. Alrighty, I'm done. I'll update you with anything further that I left the cupboard open.